2.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another self-directed IRA Tuesday class. My name is Brianna. I am an IRA specialist here with Quest Trust Company. Today we have a wonderful speaker, Ms. Vee Le, here to talk about rentals in IRA, and we would love to just give you a short disclaimer before, let you know a little bit more information about who Quest is, what it is we do, and all of the information you need to know to get started today. So just a short disclaimer, as I said, Quest Trust Company, we are a self-directed IRA custodian. We do not employ advisors. So if you seek any tax, legal, or investment advice, it is always best to reach out to a financial professional who can assist you with that. All of the material that you'll see here today is for educational purposes only. So if any tax, legal, investment, or structuring advice is sought, please do contact those professionals to have those opinions. All right, now who are we? Quest Trust Company, again, is a self-directed IRA custodian. This means that our clients typically invest their IRAs or their retirement funds into alternative assets, really anything outside of the stock market. So think real estate, promissory notes, private entities like syndications or startup companies. All of that was within the realm of alternative assets that we will allow our clients to invest into. So right now we are headquartered in Houston, Texas. We have offices as well in Austin and Dallas, where we do host weekly educational and monthly networking events. Now, we are Texas based. However, we have 20,000 active clients across the country. So that does not limit you just to Texas. We have clients all over the world, and otherwise people who are watching these educational videos themselves to learn a little bit more on how to self-direct their IRA. As of today, we're currently sitting at about 2.7 billion assets under our administration. $400 million of that is undirected cash, meaning that if you are an investor looking for an opportunity to get into, or you are on the other side of that fence and you're looking for the funds or the individual with the funds to invest, we can really be that point of contact for you on either side of the line. So currently sitting at 100 employees under our employment right now, 34 of which are certified as IRA service professionals. However, we did just have another round of representatives sit for that test. So we do expect that number to rise here in the next month or so. And as always, if you're not familiar with Quest, we do put on free education. This class specifically held every Tuesday at noon. We also have a self-directed IRA class at noon as well. What that is going to typically be us letting you know just how you're able to invest into alternative assets. For example, today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on rentals and Airbnbs within an IRA. And so the education will kind of switch by week, and you'll really be able to get a few view of our events that we host on our website. So I do highly encourage you to check out the events tab. We have a lot of upcoming webinars that you will be very excited to see if you are just now diving into the space or you've already been in it for a while. A lot of valuable information, as you'll see here today. Education is the key, as always. Please check us out on YouTube, Facebook, or Google. Quest Trust Company, we post all of our webinars on our YouTube. So if you are ever not available for the live viewing, or if you really just would like to review the presentation deck, please do check out our YouTube page. We post those typically within the hour after the presentation has gone on. So highly recommend that you check that out. And again, so just a quick recap of what all of our events are that we host. Now, these are scheduled events. These take place typically on a routine. So, for example, our weekly live self-directed IRA classes where you're at today, every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central, you will be able to log on to either our YouTube or our Facebook page and check out some of the education we're putting on for that day. Again, self-directed IRA Saturdays, that's going to be the same time, 12 p.m. Central. Facebook or YouTube, you'll be able to view the live webinar. And of course, if you miss it, just check out our YouTube and our Facebook. We will post it there for you to review. And finally, one of our up and coming events, this is actually a bigger one for us, is our virtual networking happy hour. This is a national happy hour, so you are not actually going to be restricted to only the people in Texas, for example. We have people from all over the country tuning in to that happy hour on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. Central, where you may be able to deal pitch and get in touch with those like-minded investors that can assist you in your next opportunity. So again, YouTube, Facebook, if you miss anything at all, we'll be happy to send you a copy of the presentation. Now, our biggest events, now this is going to be our biggest in-person events monthly, is our self-directed IRA social. Now, typically these are held in Houston on the first Tuesday of the month, Austin second Tuesday, and Dallas third Tuesday. But keep in mind for this month only, the Houston is going to be delayed until the last week of this month, and that's because of July 4th. So that next one is going to be for us at the end of July. Otherwise, please check us out in Austin next Tuesday and Dallas on the next Tuesday for that self-directed IRA social. We have food, drinks, networking. So it's really great time for everyone to really get in front of the people that you may be able to interact with later on down the line when you're looking to make those investments yourself. And of course, our biggest educational and networking event of the year. This is the third annual Quest Expo. We're really excited to host this event in Houston this year. So September 23rd through the 25th, we will be at the Westin Galleria. We're expecting about upwards of 800 attendees. This is a really great place for networking, lead generation, really to get your name out there as to what it is you do, what you're looking for, all of that. We have a really, really great education, really centered on the alternative investment space. So this is not specifically tailored for IRA investors. However, a lot of great information no matter which side of that line you fall on. So please check out questexpo.com. Colin just put a link down in the description there. Give it a click and use Clayton30 for a discount if you are interested in those tickets. All right, and just to wrap it all up, this is actually going to be the event that I was talking about in Houston at the end of this month. That is July 26th. It's going to take place at the same time as our typical social, so 6:30 to 8:30 Central. This one is strictly, however, deal pitching. So it's not necessarily an educational component to it, but more so where you're able to get in front of the crowd, let them know what it is that you do, what opportunities you may have upcoming, so on and so forth. So very excited. This is the first of this type of event that we're hosting at our office where it is just purely deal pitching. So please get out here to the Houston office. We would be happy to have you chat amongst a lot of our investors that are currently active with Quest and a lot of new people who are making their way down to these events now that we're finally full back up and running in person. And then some contact information for you. That's my email there. That's our general line. If you have any questions at all, give us a call, talk to an IRA specialist. We'd be happy to have the conversation with you. And some links as well to our Facebook and LinkedIn where we are active. And we'd be happy to assist in any way we can. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic back over to Vee Le, who is our wonderful presenter for today. Take it away.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today.
Of course.
Do I come out okay? Sound all good?
All good. Yes,
all
ma'am.
right, so I can share my screen.
Perfect.
Is it already shared? Oh, great. Okay, thank you. You guys got it going on over there. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. And my name is Vee Le. We are here to talk about what people don't talk about in short-term and vacation rentals. So before we get there, I would like to take a minute to just give you guys an introduction. Oh. So that was me before real estate. That was me on the racetrack. But in 2014, I traded life on the fast lane to closing fast deals. And I can't believe I'm saying this. It's 8 years in real estate. And today I was able to collect a few titles there. Since I can't see any of you on this webinar, if anything, any of this topic here interests you today, feel free to reach out to me. I love to connect with you after the webinars and beyond. Okay, so short-term and vacation rental. And I know you got probably 10 other things going on during this webinar as well. So I can't really see you. So anytime if you see anything fun or interesting, just give me an oh yes silently on your side. That's be okay too. I can feel your energy from over here. So let's start with defining what is short-term and vacation rental. So short-term, or also known as vacation rentals, is the leasing out of a furnished property on a short-term basis. And depending on the house, the owners, the locations, and many other factors, these properties are rented out by the week or the night, or sometime maybe even 30 days at a time. So that is, in short, the definition of short-term rental. Now, I also will tell you what short-term rental is not. And surprise, it's not an Airbnb. So here, let's just clarify real quick. Airbnb is just a listing site. That's where you go to market your short-term rental if you have one. Just like the realtor would go on the MLS to market their property for sale, and we don't go and call the property that we list on MLS an MLS. So just from here on out, let's be professional and let's call them short-term rentals or vacation rental and not an Airbnb. And let's face it, Airbnb has gotten a lot of negative publicity lately. So do we really want to associate ourselves with Airbnb? So since it's not an Airbnb, then what is it? Well, it is a hospitality business. So if you decide to get into a short-term rental business, you got to start thinking like hotel, hospitality, resort. That means you got to be there 24/7. And that means you're going to get that call at 3 a.m. in the morning. That means your home needs to stand out. It needs to have amenities. It needs to have wow factor. So this is where I would say, think about a bad experience that you had staying at a hotel, right? It's ruined your whole trip. And now you think about a good experience that you had staying at the hotel. So if you think about it, imagine how much work it takes into creating that good experience that you had, right? It starts with a clean room, it starts with the amenity, the welcome feeling that you get when you walk into the lobby, all of that. So having short-term rentals is like having all the boutique hotel that you operate. Okay. So now that you understand what this business is about, let's talk about the things that people don't talk about. So number one, your number one enemy is regulations. So why do I say that? Well, regulations sometimes are out of our control, and the government has a lot of power. Remember when COVID first started in 2020, March of 2020, the government showed us how much power they had when they shut down the entire country. Well, technically, they shut down all the short-term and vacation rentals, but they did not shut down hotel, right? So in short-term rental, you have different level of regulations. You have state, city, county, and then also HOA, which is homeowner association level. And that's probably the most dangerous level at the same time, because they right there next to you, right? So here's a story. I have a short-term rental in 2018, and we were operating for about 6 months, and then the HOA decided to send us a letter to seize the business. Well, a lot of back and forth. Long story short, they changed the bylaw to no longer allow short-term rentals. Fast forward today, I hire an attorney to file a suit, and we are back in business. But why do I share this story with you is because although regulations are there, you need to understand regulations, and you need to know how to protect your investment from these regulations. So how do you protect your investment? You could either invest in these destination area where it is known to have short-term vacation rental. If you choose to invest in urban market like Houston, you got to know your bylaw, your deed restrictions, and understand what it takes to get a change. So typically, in my experience, the bigger HOA that you are in, the older and bigger HOA, it's harder to change the regulations than in these smaller HOA. Now, the newer development, they now understanding short-term rental, so they're starting to put regulations in their bylaws. So just make sure you read your bylaw, your restrictions when you decide to purchase the property for short-term rental. So what else do you not hear a lot? So following regulations, there's also tax and permits. And I'm not talking about income tax here. I'm talking about hotel tax, lodging tax. So you got to understand that if you list your home for short-term rental, you are required to remit taxes, collect and remit taxes. And the tax rates are different county to county, city to city. So you got to know what to collect. And then you also got to know if a permit is required. Like Galveston require permits. Houston, as of today, does not require a permit. Recently, the city of Seabrook is also requiring a permit. Pearland is requiring permit. Austin require a permit. And then you have Sugar Land, which bans short-term rental of less than 30 days altogether. So if you don't know, what place would require a permit, just go to the city or call the city and find out. Okay. And same for your tax rate too. In Harris County, you have the xcat.net, and I might be wrong here. So, but that's where you can go to find out what your tax rate is for the city of Houston. Okay, so now you understand some regulations. You understand that permits may be required. You know that you have to collect and pay taxes, and they are paid quarterly, by the way. Then here's the kicker. It's not easy. I would challenge anyone out there that say that getting a short-term rental property up is easy, because it's not. It take a lot of planning, and it start from the rehabbing stage of your property. So again, I use hotel as an example because everyone has stayed at an hotel at one point, right? So every hotel has a concept. So you have to decide what concept you want to have for your short-term rental. Is your short-term rental a Motel 6 concept, or is it a Ritz-Carlton concept? Then you need to start planning it out that way. You need to research your competitions, before you even do anything to that property to make it a short-term rental. And if you're not sure, I would say hire a designer to help you with that phase. So first, you got to decide what concept you want to be, start rehabbing it that way. And then you got to furnish it to match with the theme that you want that you had in mind. Okay. You got to consider the wow factors. You got to make sure you stand out from your competitions in your area. And then once you've got it all, furnished, ready and all, now you got to worry about your operations, right? You get it listed. How do you handle check-in? How do you handle check-out? How do you do with maintenance, issues, fraud, chargeback? There's a lot of things, right? And I see every day in these Facebook posts about my guest did this, my guest did that. What do I do now? It's as simple as, well, checkout is at 11 a.m. and my guest's still in the house. What do I do? Yeah, what do you do when stuff like that happen? Do you have all of that, process or decision-making key in place so that when you face with these situations, you know what to do? Okay. So, and it's get even harder because your income is not guaranteed. This is scary, isn't it? Like, you put in a lot of work, you put in a lot of money to get the home ready, set up, and then your income's not guaranteed. So while there's a lot of potential upside to short-term rental, it takes a while to build traction. Depending on the seasonality, your area, sometime, your property get booked right away and you start getting income right away. Sometime it takes a few months for it to get up and running. So there will be months where, you won't have any income for a while or very little income. And, it's also sometime, again, it's so hard to predict because there is no like product. Your house is different than another house down the street and another house around the corner. It takes a lot of work to really get down to, well, why is this property staying booked and why mine's not staying booked? And that take a lot of time. So your income will fluctuate. It just depends on everything that you put in the property. So your income's not guaranteed, right? And here, it's not even getting any easier. I said it's not easy, but everything I say here is not going to get any easier. Because you're like, okay, Vee, you're telling me my income's not guaranteed, but then I go on all these rental projections tool and they say I'm gonna make this much, my house gonna earn that much. So here's the bad news, right? Most of them are inaccurate. Why do I say that? Excuse me if I'm coughing a little. So Airbnb, for example, this is how they come up with your rental estimate. They take an average nightly rate that the property advertised, and they multiply it to all the block nights, whether it was occupied, a paid night, or if it was just a block night. And that's how they come up with what your rental projections. Well, some people might look their fees into it. Some might just be a block night where they come and stay. So it's really not, clear on how much your property can make. In my experience, you probably could get a little bit more accurate with the rental projections by aligning with a local property management company who has, managed property in your area, and they can probably use their data from their own properties to come up with better figures than these rental tools. I'm not saying that all of them are inaccurate. I'm saying there's some discrepancy in these rental projections tool, and it's up to you to do your homework so that you can come to a pretty good estimate of what you think your house will get. Okay. So now that you have your home ready, furnished, and you did your homework, you look at all your data projections, there's something that, you also need to be cautious about is the numbers. People like to talk good talk. People like to say, oh, I get $1,000 a night for my property, because it sounds so much better than saying, oh, I get 100 a night or 109 a night. So there's just so much going on in the short-term rental, because it's like I said earlier, you're operating a boutique hotel. So a lot of costs can get buried and get miscalculated. And, your rent, instead of, your true rent, we're not talking about rent plus fee or plus tax, right? Because it's you get this big number of your revenue of like 5,000, but in reality your real rent is maybe 3,000. So you got to look at that number, right? And then you have your ongoing costs of like toilet paper, coffee, things that go into the house, toiletry stuff. Those are the things that are really hard to track, but you have to track them if you want to run a profitable short-term rental. Okay. And then, things like occupancy, it's all of these numbers blended together, and then they just kind of get blurry and it looks like it's a lot of money, because you rent it out for X number, X dollars a night. But at the end of the day, you got to look at what your net number looks like, right? After your guest accidentally borrow a towel and in return, we had a guest that borrowed a knife set and just, forgot to send them back. So those are the things that you got to factor into your cost of doing business when you run the estimations or looking at your numbers, your profitability for short-term rental. Okay. What else do people not talk about? Now, at any time, if anyone has any questions, do feel free to let the team know, the moderator know, and then we can come in and answer them. So, with all the hard work that you got to do, you can't cut corners. So, here's an example. When we first started out this short-term rental journey, we didn't know what we were doing. So, any property that we had that was rented long-term, when we took it back, we put furniture in and then we rented them out short-term. They were making some money, and then the reviews started to come. It was one bad review after another. And so this house, when we first started, again, our vision was, let's just do it like a Motel 6. Let's just put some furniture in. Let's keep it basic. But, guest expectation has changed. Competitions come around. So last year, we actually took this property down, rehabbed the whole property entirely, new kitchen, new everything. And instead of charging, we were at 109, now we're at 249. And it's doing way, way better than it did before. So why I share this example is to tell you that you cannot cut corners. Not in the rehabbing, not in the furnishing, and not in the way you do in business. Cut corners will create more headaches down the line, because if you don't take care of a maintenance problem, you end up with more maintenance problem. It end up costing you more money because you got to compensate the guests for the problem, and then they're going to leave you a bad reviews, which will hurt you down the line even more, because people will stop booking when they start seeing more and more and more of negative reviews. So what are things that you can save on and not cut corners? Would be, you don't have to go all the way out in all the way, like deck the whole house out in every single room, but just pick your area. If you want to highlight your kitchen, or if you want to highlight your backyard, whatever you want to highlight, spend a lot of money there, and then go conservative in the other space. Now in the bedroom though, you cannot cut corners on your mattresses. You do need to have nice high quality mattresses, and also good quality pillows and sturdy bed. Okay, really do go with a sturdy bed, because otherwise you gotta send your handyman back and forth a lot to get those bed secure, safe. So here's another place that you can save money on is we actually do buy just stainless steel kitchenware. You don't have to go expensive on those either, because they will get ruined, they go missing, and you do have to replace them frequently. So that's an area where you don't have to spend a lot of money on. TV are cheap, so do have one TV in every room, a bigger TV in the living room. So I when we get clients and they say, well, Vee, people are on vacations, they don't need a TV. I would say I beg differ, because people are used to having a TV. And sometimes parents are downstairs working or talking or doing whatever, and they want their kid to be entertained on the TV. So TVs are important, and do get smart TV. Okay. Okay. So you spent all this money, you did your research, you create this beautiful home on the street, right? That even like everybody wants to come and stay. But then here's what you're going to find out soon. Your neighbors will hate you. Anyone here live next to a short-term rental or know someone that lives next to a short-term rentals? So if you know what somebody or live next to somebody and nobody ever say, oh, I love my Airbnb, the Airbnb next door. I get to meet new people every week. That never happened, right? In fact, they'll call you and say, your trash is out. Your grass is too high. Your neighbor, your guests, your tenants were loud. Those are the things you'll get. So that doesn't mean that you have to be mean to your neighbors. I think, in this business, we hear if you want to operate it like a business, you got to treat it like a business. You got to be nice to them. You got to be a good neighbors. So don't allow parties or events. That's our rules. We want to be a good neighbors. We don't want to create, be nuisance. So we very mindful. We warn our guests of quiet hours, and that is 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, just so that we won't have these loud noise and complaint. And you got to train your neighbor too. You got to tell them, look, we're on the same side. So if there's a problem, do give us a call. And eventually they'll learn. They'll learn, and then we'll get along. But in the beginning, you'll get a lot of resistance. You get a lot of calls. Last week, we got a call from our neighbors. Our yard guy actually mowed their yard, right? So you say, yeah, but the neighbor called and said, oh, your yard people mow it too short, and now my grass is dying. Look, it's 100-degree out right now. Whose grass is not green? I mean, not yellow right now. So that's neighbor for you. And then, so you got your neighbor handle. Now you're also going to learn that your guests will exaggerate. So, how do guests exaggerate? Well, I'm assuming that most of you here on this webinar are from Texas. And have you ever seen a roach in your house? You think your house is dirty? Yeah, probably not, right? So here's the story. Katrina booked her stay at Villa Fiesta for 5 nights. And her group come stay. They stayed for about 3 nights already, right? So on the 4th night, they started to send pictures of roaches and started to complain about different kinds of issues. And then they started to talk about a refund. They started talking about, they want a full refund back. So what do you think? I have someone on the line mention bed bugs. We even had a guest taking a picture of a bug and send it over to us and claim that it was bed bugs. And it actually wasn't. So bed bugs is serious, guys. So when that happened, do take care of it. When we actually confirm and verify that it was a bed bug case, we do take care of it. We do take that very seriously because we don't want that to get spread. So we do take care of it. But my point is that your guests will exaggerate a lot, and it's up to you on how you handle it. professionally, and also hospitably, if that's the word, right? Because you are in the hospitality business, so you got to think of a way to make both sides happy, especially your guests. So just be reasonable and be friendly and be professional. But also, when your guests cross the line, I do feel like you got to be stern with your policy. Um, so now you understand all of this. You're aware of your neighbors. You're aware of your guests. And here's something that I see people do all the time. They get their beautiful home ready, and they put it on Airbnb. And that's the only thing they do. Excuse me. So, you know how risky that is to just market your property on Airbnb? It's like putting all your eggs in one basket. So, if you are on this show, on this webinar, and you have short-term rental and you only market on Airbnb, I urge you to consider other sites like VRBO. That's really friendly and easy for owner operators. TripAdvisor is a little bit pickier, harder to get on, and same with Booking.com. There's the questions about how do you pick area that are not overly saturated. That's a good question, Kevin. I think that when you're in a market that is overly saturated, it's just more competitions. So you really got to look at your numbers carefully when you do so. I am not in a market that is overly saturated. I'm in Houston, Galveston, and in between. So I would say that if you're in an area that are overly saturated, you got to look at the top performers and see what they all have in common. And then try to be better than those top performers. Okay. I can't say that I have an area on top of my head right now that I would say that it's overly saturated, because it's just this industry is so niche that every house is different. So you got to look at why people travel to your market. What are they looking for? For us, we like 4-bedroom and plus home. We don't like anything smaller. And then we really try really hard to make sure our homes stand out from the competitions in way we, design, decorate, things we put in the home. I hope I answer your questions there, Kevin. So, so here's another thing with Airbnb. Airbnb dictate how you run your business. And so in Halloween of 2020, they decided to seize all new reservations for Halloween night because they thought it was going to be crazy. Well, if you have a home that lists on Airbnb and you were dependent on that income, well, I'm sorry, right? During the inaugurations in DC, they also shut it down. They didn't accept any new reservations. So I refuse to give anyone that much power to decide how I should run my business. And so I will do my best to put my property on as many listing sites, so that I can get as many eyeballs on my listing as possible. Okay. Another thing with Airbnb, and I can go on with all these things about Airbnb, but I know we're on a time here. So another thing is Airbnb, you do not receive your money until 24 hours after the guests have checked in. And so it's like someone who already buy your product, but you don't get paid until after they satisfy with the product, right? So I'm not too fond of that policy. So make sure that you, again, on this point, it's really, really important that you do market your property on as many platforms as you can, and make sure you also link them so that you don't run into situations of double booking. Okay. Now, if that does happen, which I hope not, but if it does happen, in my opinion, the logical choice is to pick the reservation that pay you more and cancel the other. Okay. It's just simple as that, right? Okay, so now that you know that Airbnb is just a listing site, and all of these are listing site, right? You are if you have a home, you operate yourself, you're the homeowner. If you hire a property management company, then you have a property management company. But basically, these sites, they don't own the home. So for your own protections, you need to have your own verification process. And what does that mean? A verification process is like when you walk up to the hotel and you want to check in, they need to see your ID, they need to see your credit card. Without either one of them, they probably won't let you check in, right? So with our guests, I am not dependent on Airbnb to check this guest for me because it's my house, okay? So I'm going to check them thoroughly. When we rent a house out to our long-term tenants, we do our due diligence, right? We verify their income, their jobs, their history, their background. So in this case, on short-term rental, because we rented it out to somebody for 3, 4, 5 nights, it doesn't mean you don't check, okay? Because at the end of the day, when something happens, it falls on your shoulder, on the property owners or the property manager. So you need to check, you need to verify. And we're very stern with our verification process. If anyone resists or, have a problem with it, it's considered a red flag. And we're happy to, not have that reservation just because it's going to create more problem down the line. Why else you also need to have a verification process? Because if you have the ability to have the guest to pay to you directly, right? Instead of going through Airbnb, the guests, after they come and stay, they can claim that they weren't happy. What we call it is a chargeback. They'll file a chargeback or dispute their stay, and then they don't want to pay for it. So when you have this verification process in place and you document it, it is your protections against the event that the guests claim that they didn't authorize those transactions or they didn't authorize the stay. So again, I cannot stress the importance of having a verification process in place. And I can tell you how many people who rely on Airbnb to verify their guests. How do we know this? Because we learned it the hard way. We lost, I don't know how many reservations. They come, they stay, they seem like good people, right? They stay and they left, and then they said, oh, well, it wasn't me. I lost my credit card. I lost my whole wallet, actually. So, yes, expensive lesson to learn. I hope I'm sharing this with you so you don't make that same mistake that we did. We ask for ID. Sometimes we ask for selfie. And we also make the guest sign a rental agreement. Now, today we're told by the credit card processor that we use is that the rental agreement doesn't hold much weight as it used to in the past for verification process. So phone communications with the guest, verify anything that you can so that you feel comfortable and you know that this guest is not going to defraud you. Questions on what do we do with a guest that wouldn't move out? We haven't, luckily, again, because we have such a good verification process that we use, we haven't had to deal with the situations, knock on wood. Now, we have had situations where we had new staff and they missed a step in the verification. So we learned that the credit card was not an authorized credit card, and we did have to go kick them out. Well, I say that, but we just show up and ask them to leave nicely. And luckily, they knew that they were scamming, so they left peacefully and quietly. In Texas, well, where we are, if we want to evict the guest, you just have to call 911 and said, someone is trespassing my property, and they most likely, or they have helped us to get the guests out before. If they stay longer than 30 days, it may establish some tenancy, and you have to go a bit extra step for that. But if it's less than that, you could get help from the police to escort them out. But a lot of time, again, just ask them to leave. What third-party software do you use? If you talk about property management software, we are using Streamline. Okay, so important of guest verification process that many people don't have in place. So once you establish this process, it will save you a lot of headaches and a lot of money down the line. What else I get asked a lot about is financing options. So before COVID, many national lenders probably would not finance short-term rental. That whole dynamic has changed. And today you can get financing from many places. You can buy this as an investment home and finance through the big banks like Bank of America, Chase, the big lenders. And you would have to have a down payment. And, the benefit is you get 30 years fixed and all. The community banks, they also finance short-term rental. They don't have, to my knowledge, most of them don't have a 30 years fixed program. It's more like a adjustable or a balloon note, 5 years, and they amortize over 15 or 20 years. We have some local lenders here that also will finance short-term rental for you. One that I know of is Jet Lending. So I know they also finance short-term rental. So there are a lot of options if you want to get into short-term rental. Okay. All right. We're almost to the end. So we're getting a little bit more serious now. We'll talk about lending. And now here's the thing that you may not know is the insurance, having the right insurance coverage. And let's separate this. When you have short-term rental, you have what we call homeowner. Well, homeowner insurance apply to all properties, right? So that cover damages to the property, and then you can get coverage for liability. And then there's a third type of insurance that is a damage waiver. So damage waivers are usually an insurance that your guests can opt in for. They'll pay for it, and it will cover damage up to $1,000 or $1,500. So that's just for minor damages. And then as the homeowner, you can also get your own damage waiver, right? And that will also cover small damages, the couch, the things that would be so much trouble to go through your normal insurance to try to file a claim for. They may take too long, they may ask for too much, and they may deny. What I'm talking about here is your damage to the property caused by your tenant, and also the liability to cover yourself if something happened to your tenant. So it's important to check with your insurance provider and be upfront with them. I'm gonna rent this property out short term. Do you cover or do you not? And because if you're gonna be operating under the radar, and if something your guests slip and get hurt and they sue you, and now you don't have enough coverage in place, or they exclude that from your policy, now you're in trouble, right? So don't here's the thing, these type of insurance that cover short-term rental, the premium will most likely run you a little bit higher than your typical homeowner rental insurance policy, but it is very important. So make sure you have the right insurance in place. So here's a story. This group booked this vacation rental. Okay, grandma, mom, dad, kids. Grandma, instead of walking through the walkway to the front door, decided to go around, and she tripped over a rock by the flower bed. Okay, so what, you guess the story. She sued the property management company, and she sued the homeowner. In this case, luckily, because they have the right coverage in place, the insurance took over and deal with the situation. So if you did not have the right coverage in place, you have to deal with it. It put you out of business. So don't let yourself get into that situation. Okay. All right. So here's another big myth that people always say about short-term rental. Is that using a property management company is expensive. But I will say this. So let's look at it this way. Let's just say your house operate at a $50,000 a year revenue, right? Your rent revenue is $50,000 a year. If you gotta pay a property management company 25% of that, somebody do the math. So that's 25%. That's 12,500 a year, right? So congratulations. If you want to take this on your own, you just earn yourself a $12,500 a year job. How does that sound? So having the right property management company, and I'm not saying this because we're managing property for other people. I'm saying this because I feel it that is true, that you can leverage their knowledge, their expertise, their experience, so that you can save time, because who is excited about having a $12,500 job, a salary for annual salary for a job? So if you get excited about it, then by all means, go manage your own property. But if you are like me, I rather spend my time adding more homes, buying more properties, and growing my portfolio than managing them, then you might want to consider a company, because they should have pricing strategy in place to maximize your nightly rate. They should already have process procedure in place to help manage your property so that your property can earn money. So that was my last slide. Who is ready for a short-term rental? And we're ready to take some questions now too. I don't know if I can hear you.
Is that better?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Perfect. So for Layla, for your question, this is recorded. This will be up on our YouTube page. Just search questtrustcompany.com and it will be one of the most recently uploaded videos on our end. All right, and we do have another question from Brandon. I'll put him up on the screen.
So have you done any midterm rentals? Brandon, I'm assuming you say midterm meaning 30 nights, 60 nights, 90 nights. Yes, we have. For anything that is longer than 30 nights, we do require a 1 month deposit. We figure that if it takes us a month to evict somebody, we are insulated. And the other thing is that a lot of these mid-stay or longer stay tenants, they do use the property a lot. If someone come and stay for a weekend, they most likely won't cook. Okay, they're gonna go out and eat. Someone that's gonna stay there for a longer term, they're gonna use the property. They're gonna cook. They're gonna use your towels, linens, and they probably won't do your laundry. So there's more damage with the guests that stay for the 30 nights or longer. So you just gotta make sure you protect yourself in that way. So for us so far, anytime these guests move out, we got to change all the sheets. We got to do a deep clean. So make sure you budget for all of that when you consider renting longer than 30 nights.
Our platform.
Any more questions for Vee today?
Only hold private assets, so real estate.
Well, if you need to reach out to her, her contact information is on the screen. Please feel free to shoot her an email. Got a phone number there as well. And then final question for you from Layla, asking if you can help provide some insight in locating STRs.
And you're the trustee.
Layla, I go with where I love to go to next because that gives me a reason to go visit the city if it's outside of where I am. Obviously, I live in Houston, so most of our homes are in Houston. I went to look at property in Florida. I want to look at property in Boston because those are the places I want to go to. So wherever that gives me a reason to travel to, and then I'll look at the property itself and that the property is in to see if it makes sense for me with the numbers, if it's going to make money on my investment.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. It was a great crowd, and we appreciate you, Vee, taking the time to share the abundance of knowledge that you have in the industry. Very, very much appreciated. If anyone has any questions, please do reach out to her. Again, phone number, email right on the screen. And I believe that's all. Any closing statements from you, Vee?
No, just thank you so much. And I hope to hear from the audience, the people attending this webinar, as I cannot see you. So if you'd like to, I'd love to connect. So do reach out to me afterwards. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Vee. Just to close out, everyone, if you're interested in some more education, we will be hosting a Lunch and Learn here at our Houston office. So please do join us this Thursday. It is at noon. It's regarding the BRRRR method. So for those of you not familiar, buy, rent, rehab, refinance, and repeat, hosted by Cameron Tope, I apologize. But it's going to be a really great event. We'll have food and there'll be live deal pitching as well. So if you're interested, check us out, questtrustcompany.com under the events tab. Any questions, do let us know. You can reach us at IRAspecialist@questtrust.com. You can also go onto our website, and our live chat is monitored by IRA specialists as well, so we can get your questions answered there. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.